Welcome to the FaithFlex podcast, your sanctuary for soulful exploration and practical wisdom, where spiritual growth joins together with the hustle of daily life. I'm your host, Monica Roxanne. I'm so glad you decided to join me and countless others because this is your moment for reflection, for growth, for real life change. Whether you're seeking a whisper of inspiration or a robust blueprint for action, the FaithFlex podcast stands as a testament to the daring spirit within all of us. So, to my pursuers and my dreamers, to my doers and believers, our journey awaits. Welcome. Hey, Facebook Flam. This is your girl, your host, Monica Roxanne, and welcome to another episode of the FaithFlex podcast, where we explore what it means to live by faith while we're walking boldly in purpose. So, with all that being said, I'm so excited about today's conversation because I am joined by none other than Dr. Nicole Rankin, affectionately known as Dr. Nick. She's a powerhouse, an international speaker, a leadership consultant, and a personal growth strategist. So she went from being a research scientist to a purpose-driven coach, helping millennials like myself and faith-based professionals walk in their calling without burning out. So today, we're going to have a deep dive in what it means to adult in purpose, how your gifts and your align with your goals, how to navigate career transitions and confidence and faith, while well-being isn't a luxury, it's stewardship. So she's going to talk about her clarity framework. So trust me, this episode is going to be a blessing. So without further ado, I bring to the FaithFlex family none other than Dr. Nicole Rankin. So Dr. Nick, welcome to the FaithFlex community. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Hello, and thank you for having me. Hello, FaithFlex community. I'm excited. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
Sure, absolutely. So let's just jump right into it because we have a lot to talk about, and you're like one of my favorite people on the planet. So, what I mean, we've known each other for several years, and so let's talk about your journey. Right, you went from being a research scientist, like you have your whole PhD is in public health, to becoming Dr. Nick, the professor, the academic, but most importantly, the personal growth strategist and leadership coach that we know today. How did that come about?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. Well, first, I think it came about because I was stuck, right? I got to a place in my career where I was doing good. I was doing good on paper and in my bank account. I was doing real good, right? And so I thought I was doing the thing that God called me to do. And those that we'll talk more about that. That I am a woman of faith, and I, thought I was doing the thing that I was supposed to do: go to school, get some good grades, get the degrees, get the good job, carry on to that road that leads to this great American dream and the great success that we're supposed to have in life. And that was adulting. That's what made me an adult. And so I did that. Right. I listened and I did, and I worked, and I struggled, and I thrived, and I got to a point where on paper I arrived. Right. I was at working at the number one public health institution in the world. Had the degrees, I had the income, I was doing all the things on the outside. But on the inside, I was struggling. I was stressed. I was feeling like there has to be more to this journey than what I'm doing right now. I did not feel that I was making that impact. I felt empty. I felt like there was a void, and I didn't really understand it because I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to do, right? But it's not balancing out. Something is not happening.
Right.
There's a missing piece to the puzzle. And so I got some help, and I knew I needed to get some help and try to figure this out because I felt stuck. And I'm a very ambitious person, and I like to keep moving. And then I was at a place where I was literally stuck and did not know what to do.
Mm,
So, growing up in church, we know that we ask for help, right? We find direction, we seek, right? And so that's what I did. And prayed about it, asking God, what do I need to do? Why am I feeling stuck? And lo and behold, that He allowed a coach to come into my life. Our paths crossed. And at the time, I didn't
mm-hmm.
know about coaching or personal development or
Sure.
anything like that specifically. And so when I met this particular coach, she helped me and we started doing our sessions. And really, it was an empowerment and enlightenment time for me to get to know who I was. And I realized
Mm,
that even going through this journey of professionalism, I knew the professional life, but I didn't know me. So gaining that
mm,
self-awareness and taking time to grow, knowing my strengths, knowing, how I work and my personality, knowing my true gifts and where they collide and who I can serve, I didn't take
yeah.
time to do that. I would just kept going. Now, get another degree, go get a good job, just that
Yeah.
rat race that we often do. And so I had to take time, had to pause, take that
Right.
time, and then to know me and to get to know me. And that's what I did. I
Yeah.
think that journey lasted about maybe 2 years that I worked with my coach. And I got to a place where I got to know me. I got to
Yeah.
know whose I was. I got to love me. Got to
Wow.
understand my gifts. And
Wow.
once I did all of that, I realized that I wasn't in alignment.
Yeah. That's good.
I wasn't in alignment with who I was and who God created me to be. And although I did good work and I was doing good at it, I was still out of alignment. And so I
Yeah.
went on my own adulting journey, and I worked with her for 2 years, and I documented my process. And once I documented my
Wow.
process and the things that I did to kind of get to my own self revelation and the prayers and all of those things, I documented that process. And then at the end of the journey, I decided that because I wasn't in alignment, I had to make a decision. Do I
Yeah.
stay doing what I did for the last 20 plus years? Or do
Sure.
I move into the things that God has called me to do?
Wow.
And
Wow.
so that was a tough decision. Because when you
Wow.
establish yourself, everything's in place, and then you're like, God, what you want me to do, what? And then you getting called into the unknown, right?
Right.
So but I made it. I took that leap of faith. I had to hone in into God's promises, um that he'll never leave me or forsake me, that I was the head and not the tail. And I relied
Yeah.
on my faith to make that decision and take that leap. And so I left my profession, and
Hmm.
decided to go into entrepreneurship and start this whole new journey. And that was the evolution
Wow.
of Dr. Nick, the personal growth strategist.
Wow. See, and you, there's so many great nuggets that you offer
Mhm.
just in that, because I think many of us, including myself and those who are
Mhm.
listening in the podcast, that we go through that, right? There's
Yes.
a season, a period where we're looking, searching, trying to find something. Is there more, right? Is always that, main
Mhm.
question, is there more? And then it's, well, if there isn't, then am I at the end of my road? Or if there is more, what is it? And so that's the first half. And then the other part, I think, often is that we try to figure out um what is it going to take to do more, right? Because many, like you said, I was comfortable, I got the good job,
Yes.
my bank account looked real good. And culturally we're taught to grow up and to establish ourselves, create
Yeah.
stability for ourselves, because the word tells us that we are good stewards. when we
Mm-hmm.
create, stability in our finances, stability in our everyday behaviors and our disciplines. And so I totally understand where you are, and you took that leap of faith. And so I think it's important that we continue to highlight what that looks like for people. And so what you talked about a lot about adulting and your purpose. You talked about a ton about, I'm trying to figure out my purpose. And I think a lot of us are,
Mm-hmm.
even in this season in 2025, are still trying to figure out a purpose. So what does it really look like?
Yeah.
You know, to adult in your purpose, and why do so many people really struggle with that?
Yeah, great question. Adulting in your purpose for me is all about alignment. So I believe
Mm,
everybody has gifts and everybody has been given talents, right? The word says, before you were in the womb,
mm,
I knew you, right? He's given you everything that you
yeah,
need. So we have natural gifts and we all have spiritual gifts. It is our job, I believe, to cultivate that, to learn that, identify those things and grow those things. Right. My gift is different than your gift. Your gift is different than someone else's gift. Right. Even if it's the same gift, it's delivered different because you are uniquely and wonderfully made. So you're going to do it differently. You're going to attract different people. So adulting is one, understanding those gifts and talents, because that's what's going to set you apart, right? So that's number one. And then now, how do we use those gifts and talents to serve who we're called to serve, right? So that's where our
yeah,
profession comes in. So, how do we use, for me, my gifts of teaching, administration, and leadership? These are gifts that I've been given. How do I take those gifts and now serve them in a profession? Right. So it could
yeah,
be if I take it and serve it in education, or if I take it and into another industry, but I'm still using my gifts. So now we're coming into alignment with the gifts that we have, the talents that we're gifted in our strength zone. Now we're merging them with a profession.
mm,
And then the last piece is, of course, we got to adult, we got to live, we got to pay these bills. Right?
yeah,
How are the bills going to get paid? Right? So now finding that sweet spot where your gifts and talents, your purpose, merges with that profession, and then you're earning a profit and
mm,
using your gifts and talents to generate the wealth that God has given
yeah,
you the ability to do. So that
yeah.
right there is your sweet spot. And that's what adulting in your purpose means. It's in alignment. When those three things come into alignment, believe that's where where God wants us to be, in really truly using the gifts and talents that we have to serve who we're supposed to serve, doing the things that we're built and born to do.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
So spot on. And so I'm a millennial. Nick, I think
Yep.
you're a millennial, right? Are you?
Just
Yeah,
on the
right.
cuss out. Yep. Zillennial.
You and me both, right? I'm like January of 81. I'm like
Yeah.
right there on the border.
Yeah.
So many millennials, even Gen Z, are in the stage of burnout, right? I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you a personal testimony. Last year, between March of 2024 to August of 2024, I was in straight burnout mode. Working
Mm-hmm.
hard. We had an organizational shift at my company. So,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of extra work that I was taking on that I normally would not have taken on,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And so it was depression hit me hard because I'm now in survival mode. I'm not in thriving mode or thriving in this space. With this group of millennials and Gen Zs and who are in burnout or unfulfilled or just searching for a new direction because we're in a different dispensation altogether, just culturally, economically, all of that. Like, what encouragement would you offer to them, to those who are trying to align their faith, their gifts, and their careers like you did?
Great question. I think the first thing that I would encourage is giving yourself time to pause. Giving
Mm,
yourself time. I think when you're in that burnout mode, you're so busy trying to do,
yeah.
you don't have time to pause to gain the clarity to know where you're supposed to be going. It is like a GPS. if you have, where with the GPS, you have 2 points that you need to know.
Yeah.
You need to know where you are,
Right.
and you need to know where you're going.
Sure.
And I think so much happens where, because you may know where you are, but
Yeah.
you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
And you're so busy trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
Right. But if you don't know that end point, that
Mm.
road and that journey is going to be so frustrated because you don't have that guide. And I think that a lot of people in this burnout state don't understand or have clarity of that end goal. Like, where am I going?
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
the journey becomes frustrated because you're
Yeah.
in that survival mode. You're just like a car, like you're trying to figure out how to get somewhere. You don't really know where you're going. You get
Yeah.
lost, and you're just out of alignment. So it's the same kind of concept. And so I first have to think that we have to pause, give ourselves
Mm-hmm.
time to really get some understanding of
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that end goal can or will or should be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
That's
once,
good.
I think that's the first step. And that right there helps you to bring you closer into alignment. When you understand that end piece or those end goals or that end vision, then now you can
Mm.
start working backwards, right? Now you
Yeah.
work backwards from where you are. You have some guidance on, okay, I know where I'm going. Now let me figure out the strategy or the plan to get there. And even if life is lifing, even
Yeah.
if you get sidetracked, even if you get rerouted, just like a GPS, when you have that end goal, what does it do? Reroute, reroute,
Yeah.
reroute,
Yeah.
reroute,
Yeah.
and brings you back into alignment to your journey. And so I think the whole burnout, stress is because we're out of alignment and we don't really have that clarity on that end goal and where we're going.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, and it's a great example because with the GPS, oftentimes, when you have to reroute, it will reroute you, get you turned around. It will add extra time. It takes a little longer, but it will get you to your end destination at eventually, right? If you start
Absolutely.
to submit to the journey and the instructions that you need to get to your endpoint, because oftentimes we think we're smarter than GPS, and GPS is better now. I know back in the day when we
Right.
had MapQuest, that was a mess, but
Ooh, right.
we probably were smarter than MapQuest, but now it's pretty accurate. So with that being said,
Yes.
follow the instructions and the
Right.
development there. So with that, how do we do that? So you have a new podcast called Adulting in My Purpose, but you have the podcast is the Clarity Chronicles, right? And so
Yes.
tell us about your clarity framework and that you've developed. Like, what are the key pillars and how can listeners apply them into their everyday life to prevent this burnout, unfulfilled searching, but really, really hone in into where they're trying to go and their next?
Yep, absolutely. So the clarity framework came about just like as we're talking, because I work with a lot of millennial professionals, high achieving professionals, and realizing that that end vision is lacking, right?
Mm,
They're in their professions, they're doing great, but they'll express that I just don't know where to go, or I have that burnout. So we take a step back and we get that clarity. So I'll go through the pillars here, starting off with C, and clarity is an acronym. So the C is communication of the vision, right?
mm,
The word says where lack of vision, people will perish, right? So we
mm-hmm.
have to be able to start with the end in mind and ask God, what is that vision that you have for my life? You've given me these gifts, you've given me these talents. What does that look like? And, it'd be great if God gave us everything that we need to know for life.
Right. Oh, I
However,
wish. House to never.
how's it never? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But what he will reveal, right? He will give us dreams. Will give us vision. So we have a framework. And then now we're seeking him constantly, daily, to understand those steps and how to make that vision come to pass. Just the word says it may delay, but it won't, it will come to pass, right? Write the vision
Mm.
and make it plain. So that communication of the vision is that starting point on getting to that clarity and
Yeah.
asking God and seeking God what that vision is, right? Then the L is leading with consistency because that's what it takes, right?
Mm.
This is not when you're trying to understand your purpose, it's just not a one and done thing. It's a consistent thing that you're leading your life
Mm.
in the manner that you need to be able to manifest the dreams and the vision that God has given you. I would tell my clients that your goals and your visions is there. God's given it to you. It's about who you become as a person and how you lead your life that's going to
Yeah.
determine how you get to that vision and how you get to those goals. So, leading your life, that consistency on a daily day basis, how you're doing, the habits that you have, the discipline that you have, the things that you do, the people that you're around, how you're leading your life is going to make that difference. All right. So, that's the
Yeah.
communication, the leadership, and then aligning your priorities, right? A lot of
Mm.
time people that's busy, especially high achievers, we got a lot on our plate and we can say,
Yeah.
well, I don't have time for this, but the reality is people
Mm.
they want to make time for. So align your priorities. And if you say that this is what God has called me to, this is the things that, the gifts and the talents that he wants me to share in this, then you got to stay focused and align your priorities to that. That means when things come, when you have to make the decisions that you need to make in life, your choices should be aligned with the vision,
Mm.
right? So it makes decision making easier. So when things come your way and opportunities come your way and people come your way, you can discern, is this an alignment with the priorities that
Mm.
God has given me? Is this an alignment with the vision and the goal and the journey that I am on through my calling? And if it's yes, great. But if it's
Yeah.
not, then you have to be able to say no, right? I
Yeah.
can't do this because that's not in alignment. That's going to help you align your priorities. And then you have to R is the next one is reinforce expectations, right? So
Mm.
you're waiting. A lot of times I hear this a lot. Well, I'm waiting on God. What you waiting for?
Right. Exactly.
What you waiting for? Right? God is waiting on you, right? So you have to work. A lot of times we're waiting on something that God has already given us. So we have to reinforce our expectations in doing the things that God has called us to do. We're
Yeah, that's
expecting
good.
him to do great things, right? Because God has given us the ability to do it. He's promised that to us. So
Yeah.
when you wait in expectation, and a lot of times the word wait doesn't mean just chill and not do anything. Waiting is about preparation. As you're waiting, for instance, if you're waiting, if you're going to throw a dinner party and you're waiting for your guests to arrive, you're preparing for that, right? You are
Yeah.
getting the house ready, you're putting out some appetizers, you're doing this, you're preparing for the opportunity to come. And so I think that getting reinforcing our expectations and really getting into that preparation mode. You always say when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. You got to be
Yep.
prepared. So getting in that preparation mode. So that's the R. I is inspired trust, meaning that you have to find people. I mean, I know we talked about this earlier. Got to have a village, right? Having your purpose is not a silo thing, right? You're going to
Mm.
be have to be able to build relationships, to be with people, to find proper connections, and inspire the trust that you have the support that you need to be on this journey, right? And then the T of it is building a team. Like I said, it's building that trust and building relationships as well. When you see God working, it's not just about you, right? Visions, your dreams, your goals is connected to other people, other generations, right? So to be open minded, to be able to build teams and connections. And so going through that process of how to do that. And the last letter in clarity is why. And that's all about you. You got to know your
Yeah.
why. Why are you doing
Yeah.
this? Why are you doing this? What is your motivation?
That's
And
good.
having that understanding of why you're doing it on the forefront every single day, because that's what's going to motivate you. That's what's going to keep you going when all hell breaks loose and life
Yeah.
starts
Yeah.
life in, and you get to the point where you just want to throw in the towel. You burn into that why, and
Yeah.
that helps push you along. So that is the clarity framework that we take our clients through to get to the place of where they are to where they wanted to be, and get into that transformational state in their life where they move from just that burnout and that stress to really truly having a purpose of life,
Mm,
having a reason and a desire to get up in the morning and not just be like, man, I gotta go to this job again,
right.
but no, they wake up refreshed, thinking like, okay, what I'm doing is really what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm
Yeah.
using my gifts. And they always said that, when you're in line with your purpose, what you do doesn't feel like work, even though you
Yeah.
may work. That's that feeling. That's that sweet spot.
Wow. Yeah, that's so, so good. And it's
Yeah.
comprehensive, right?
Mhm.
Communication, learning, aligning, forget that are realigning, reinforce expectations, inspiring
Yes.
trust and team. And you got to know your why. Listen,
Yeah, no
so I
more.
just learned the clarity framework here on the FaithFlex podcast. Listen, y'all. So let's
Mhm.
apply it to our lives. And so, interesting enough, if we take a minute to really look at those the word clarity, and it means to be clear, right? To have a clear, open viewpoint. And so
Yeah.
what a great way to live your life and to remove all of the cultural shackles and your own self-imposed boundaries instead of really leaning into the community that we have, because we can't do this by ourselves. We're so past
Mhm.
living by ourselves, right? Not in the sense that you can't live by yourself, but you need to have community and to work with people and to be a part of people, because that's how we grow. Iron sharpens iron. So I think it's important. You talked in the clarity framework, it's really about building setting yourself up for to live in purpose and to be well and to be successful. So um I guess the question I want to ask is, in your stance, you say that well-being is not a luxury, but it's stewardship.
Yeah.
So can you unpack that for us just a little bit more, like especially in the context of spiritual and professional?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about stewardship, it's the management of all things that God has given us, right?
Mm,
And
mhm.
that includes our physical, our mental, emotional, spiritual, everything
Yeah.
that we have that God has given us. How do we manage that? And when
Mm,
we talk about burnout is not only a physical thing, it's a mental thing, it's an
yeah,
emotional thing, it's a
that's so
spiritual
good.
thing. And so when we have that, when we talk about wellness and wholeness, and in the area that I work with, I just don't deal with the professional life. I always bring in the personal life, because you can't have one without the other. You show up how you show up. A lot of
Yeah,
times we try to compartmentalize, oh, my
yeah, that's
work
good.
life from my personal life, but you can't, because if things are happening in your personal life, it's going to show up at
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
right? It's going to show up. So when we think about wellness and wholeness, it's about how do we manage that, right?
Mm,
A lot of times we say, oh, we don't have time to take a vacation, or oh, I can't do this, I can't, do something I love because I'm so busy. I'm so busy.
yeah,
Well, busy doing what? right? It's more about the stewardship of how you're spending your time, how are you exerting your energy, how are you developing your physical health, your mental health, and your emotional health. It's not a luxury. It's we have to. The word says that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, right?
Mm,
So we
yeah.
have to be able to manage and do the things that we do and do it well. So that when we talk about that, it's not a luxury, it's stewardship. That's what we mean. How are you managing the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual aspects of your life so you can be well, so you can be whole?
Yeah, and so I want to
Mhm.
also add additionally to that.
Mhm.
Well, how do you maintain your clarity and purpose in seasons of waiting and disappointment or spiritual drought, right? Because I think that's
Yes.
also like one of the bigger challenges is, I know my purpose, but this my purpose and this season it ain't aligning. It's not connecting.
It-
So like how do we navigate through that and keep clarity without allowing the weight of a season that may not align with your purpose?
yeah, that's a great question. And I think kind of going back to something that I said before is knowing that why
Mm,
and really
mhm.
honing in on the end goal, because nobody promised that life is going to be a bunch of roses, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's not going to happen. There are going to be good days, just in the word. There's going to be mountaintop experiences, and you're going to have some valleys. But
Right.
in those times of seasons, that's when that faith kicks in. That's when you're getting into the word and reading on the promises of God. Getting, what does the word say?
Mm,
Where can we find this in the word, so that will help you and hone you through those valley experiences, right? Where's your source? And a lot of
yeah, it's
times we're
good.
not anchored in the right source, because
Yeah.
when those times happen, those seasons occur, we're looking for external sources. We might be looking for people, or looking at social media, or the latest this or the latest that. We have to refocus and get back to our source, get back
Yeah.
in alignment, right? And
Yeah.
trust in God and what He says, even through those valleys experiences, that He still has us, that He still sits on the throne, and getting into word and having our daily prayer and having our meditation and devotion. So that is going to help fuel us through
Mm,
those times when life is life and it doesn't seem like
yeah.
you're in alignment. But I always say you're always on assignment.
Ooh.
Sometimes that assignment is to grow you.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're out of alignment, you're just in a growing season and a growing transition where things may be chaotic, but God still is on the throne, so He's still working in and through you. So
Yeah.
He is trying to grow you. He is trying to develop you. He is trying to strengthen you. As the word says, we go through trials and tribulations to gain
Mm,
perseverance,
that's good.
right? So these are development times. So everything that you go through is purposeful, and it
Yeah.
may look like it's in the physical that you're out of alignment, and that's when it's key to
Yeah.
tap in, so you can see things not from the natural eye but from that spiritual eye, and what God is doing. And that's when you get into that why, and that's what's going to keep you motivated through those dark valleys. And it's inevitable. It's inevitable,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
I go through highs and lows as well. For me, dealing with grief. My father just passed away a few months
Yeah.
ago. So even dealing with all of that, it's like there are times where I'm like, I don't want to help nobody. I don't want to do nothing. Right.
Right?
So, but I keep that why in mind. Right.
Yeah.
And then I get into my word and get the encouragement and rely on the promises of God. And then I'm able to take a step, and then another step, and
Yeah.
then another step, right? And that's how you gain that consistency. Sometimes you think you got to do so much at one
Mhm.
time, so big, but it could be just one little thing One little thing that's going to take you through for that day. So, getting back to the source, getting in alignment with the word, your prayer, your meditation, your devotion, and fueling yourself from a spiritual standpoint is going to get you
Yeah.
through that earthly battle.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. Wow. I just felt I was like, she's getting in her mode. I was like, I wanted to be in church. Like, come on here and preach. It's so good, so good. So, like, Dr. Nick, you're a woman of faith and a leader in both the professional and spiritual space, right? And as a minister of the gospel. So, how has your faith influenced your leadership style? Because clearly it resonates with you. It drips from you, right? So, how has it shaped you how you lead, even in your life or others, or in as you coaching people?
Yeah, it's everything. It's everything. I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't have the faith that I have. And
Hmm.
I think when I have an understanding of who God is and who He has created all of us to be, I have that type of empathy and go in with my leadership with the empathy and grace to help other people find their journey. And
Mm,
so I take that because God was that way with me.
yeah.
I wasn't always obedient. If it wasn't for the Lord, what they say, if it wasn't for the Lord by my side, where would I
Right.
be? Right.
Right.
So he had that grace with me. He had that grace and had that mercy of for me. So I lead with that with other people. So I
Yeah.
can't give up on others when they want to give up on themselves. I can't judge, go in with a judgmental attitude, any
Yeah.
of that. So I bring that type of servanthood and servant leadership into the way I coach, into the way I
Hmm.
teach. And that's what makes the connection because people are able to relate to me. So it's
Yeah.
not that, I become relatable. And so that's where the change happens. I think so. My faith is in everything that I do.
Wow. And it's clear, right? And
Yeah.
and even in addition, like, to myself, like, one of the reasons why I started the FaithFlex podcast, started off as a post every day on Facebook. Now it's a
Mhm.
podcast, has a newsletter. It's because my faith drives the way I lead, how I live, how I see people. And I think it's
Mhm.
important that we take a healthy survey, a reflective look of who we are and how we are. And it's
Yep.
probably going to reveal to us how we engage with other people. Are we open? Are we compassionate? Are we loving and kind? Are we, we have empathy and grace, even to people, but to ourselves first? Because if we don't give grace to ourselves first, we won't be able to extend grace to others and give grace to ourselves in seasons, right? So in that season of
Right.
waiting and disappointment and spiritual drought, or things are not
Mhm.
moving, or it seems like things are dead, give yourself grace. We've had a couple of episodes a few weeks ago
Mhm.
on just the different seasons of life, your spring, fall,
Yeah.
autumn, but those are transition periods, and you should go through those periods because that means that you're still growing. There's still growth in you. And in those hard seasons,
Absolutely.
when things dry up and they fall off, that's not a negative that you're in the wrong. That just means that we're now getting you pruned so that we can move you to the next, right? So God can do the next level. But
Absolutely.
if we don't handle that season well, then
Mhm.
we're not preparing for the next season. So totally dope. I just love, like,
Yeah.
so of course you're like one of my favorite sissies in the ministry, and I'm so admire your resolve and your strength, and but also your courage to
Mhm.
do what you did, right? Because you go from having steady income, your account is fat, you're like, woo, girl, let's go here, let's travel to wherever, you're doing your thing, and then you're like, okay, I
Mhm.
still want to look for purpose. I'm still not fulfilled in what I was
Mhm.
told to be normal, but I need purpose. I'm required to be purposeful. So kudos to you for
Mhm.
recognizing that, constantly seeking God in that space and say, okay, God, what's next? Or am I aligned
Mhm.
with what you're asking me to be aligned? And God's like, what you're doing is great. I remember relocating from Louisiana to New Jersey, and I'm like, God, I just want a job that takes care of my needs, and then can I do
Mhm.
ministry? Because ministry costs. I call them the after 9 to 5 hobbies, right? Your after nine to
Yeah.
five jobs. It costs coins to do that. So Lord, put me in
Yes,
a
it
position
does.
where I can do that, and so that you're glorified. But part of that is having
Hmm.
clarity, understanding how to pray and how to seek, and then prepare for you to be aligned to
Excellent.
that. So I know we're wrapping up, we're getting close to time, and I wanted to
Okay.
ask you, like, what role does building community really play in your purpose discovery and your way of leadership, developing your leadership? Like, so can a person really find their way and purpose without community? Because we everybody says, I can do it by myself. I don't need nobody. Or we're so quick to cut people off when we really need help. There's nobody there. And we're trying to figure
Mm,
out, why are we so stagnant? Can we really find purpose without community?
great question. And I would say no, would be my
Mm.
answer to that. And the reason being is that your purpose is not for yourself.
Ooh.
Your purpose
Mm.
is for others.
Yeah.
So, in order to uncover and discover your purpose, you have to be able to be connected. You have to be able to build relationships, even to find out what your purpose is. Because
Yeah.
when you become involved, when you become connected with people, that's when your giftings become exposed. How do I
Mm-hmm.
know I have the gift of leadership if I don't have anybody to lead? How do I
Ooh, that's good.
know that I have the gift of administration when I don't have anything to administer, right? So when you
Yeah.
get connected and you start to build those relationships, you begin to see your gifts evolve and emerge. We always say success leaves clues. Same thing with your
Yep.
giftings. They leave clues. And there are times when you're interacting and you're in community that your gifts will emerge. And we don't
Mm.
see them as gifts because we're not thinking that way. But if you, again, get back to that clarity and start looking and going through the processes, you'll see along your journey there's certain things and certain patterns that will emerge that you've been exhibiting all along. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where, when you're in community, that's
Yeah.
when it comes out. So I say no because your purpose is not for yourself anyway. So you're going to have to get involved, get in line, get some
Yeah.
support. And I know I can say, even for an example for myself, when I did make my transition into entrepreneur, I had that mindset. Well, I got this. I can do this. I can do this by myself.
Right.
Crash and burn quickly. And it wasn't until, although, yes, I'm gifted at certain things, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know anything about what I was doing. So I needed
Yeah.
help. And it wasn't until I was able to get out my own way
Yeah.
and ask God to show me, okay, who do I need to connect with? Then people started coming in, connections started being made, and then I began to move forward in this thing.
Yeah.
So, if you're trying to do it by yourself, hey, I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying that there
It might be a
is an
little smidget
easier way.
difficult.
There is, it could be an easier way, that you don't have to do it by yourself. And that was one of the main reasons why I started the community that we have, because people need to know that they're not alone. And that's one of the major things that our members, in our adulting community talk about. They're like, man, I thought I would by myself. And every time they tell a story, somebody jumps in and say, hey, that was me too. So they feel now that they're not in this journey by themselves.
Yeah, it's so good. That's so good. So you are a speaker, a thought leader, and also an author. So tell us about your book.
Yes. So my first um, journal is called the Adulting in My Purpose Journal, and again, that is a vision of the journey that I went on to transition, from that stuck burnout
Yeah.
season to that life of clarity and purpose. And so I take you on 7 journeys and of self discovery, starting with
Oh,
self
nice.
awareness.
Got it.
All right. So getting to know yourself, who you are, and then we go on a journey of self-reflection. We go on a journey of self-knowledge and
Mm,
self-belief, self-improvement, um, and then going into self-motivation. And all of these journeys will help you get peel back the layers to get to the core of who you are
mm,
and get you refocused so you can begin to see and hear from God and get to that understanding of where he has you positioned in life and kind of pulling back to get to that purpose. So
yeah.
that is the book. It's going to be a part of, that's the first book in the series. So we do
Nice.
have some more coming out soon in the fall. You'll see Adulting in My Power, and
Wow.
then also coming out Adulting in the Workplace. So those are two more that's coming out right now and that I'm working on.
Listen, she's already walking in her purpose, y'all. So we all got to play catch up. Like, listen, if you haven't figured out, go get the book, Adulting in My Purpose, and start walking yourself through that journey, the 7 areas. And again, it's not the end all be all, but it's going to give you an opportunity to reflect. It's important to be reflective, to take the time to say, okay, where am I? Take survey of where you are, and then where do I want to be. And if you already know where you want to go, just take the survey, do a pulse check, do a a benchmark review, debrief, to make sure that you have everything that you need to do that. So with that being said, I know we're at time, but I wanted to ask, what final word would you speak over someone that's listening right now who feels like
Mhm.
they've missed their window, or they feel like it's too late to walk in their purpose?
Oh, it's never too late. God is waiting. All he's waiting for is a yes. Just to say, yes, Lord, use me. And all we have to do is get started. Doesn't matter how old, how what you think, it's never too late. Because the fact that you have breath in your body
Mm,
means there's still purpose to be had.
yeah.
Because if it was too late, you wouldn't be here right now.
Ooh, that's so good. I tell people all the time, God is a God that is about the living, right? He tells us, let the dead bury the dead. Let
That's
dead
true.
be where it remains. He doesn't even acknowledge the dead. He says, well, for the fig tree, prune it. If it's not producing
That's it.
anything, cut it
Cut
down,
it off.
right?
Cut it off.
And
Yep.
so I think it's important that we honor, that we're still breathing, so that every breath
That's
is
right.
not a wasteful, unto itself, and every season is not wasteful, right? Again, even in
Absolutely.
your tough seasons, it's important to really think about, where am I and what season am I in? And if you're in that, again, if you're in a tough season, handle that tough season well. Don't complain, don't nag, don't whine. Okay, buckle down, right? Go
Yeah.
through the journey, go through the pruning, whatever that may
Yeah.
be, and then prepare for your next level of growth. Because if you don't
Yeah.
prepare in the wintertime or in the fall, you really don't prepare in the fall, you're not going to really be able to
No.
survive extreme weathers well, but if
Yeah.
without preparation, right? And so I think it's important
Right.
that we do what we can and have clarity. Because if you have clarity, if you tap into the clarity framework, no matter what season you're in,
Yeah.
you're guaranteed success. And so shout out to Dr. Nick. So listen, you guys know what time it is. We have had a great episode. I am like thinking to myself, you know what, we can keep going. So we're going to have to bring Dr. Nick back to the FaithFlex podcast so we can talk more about adulting in our purpose and living in a place where we are finding direction, because we are in a different dispensation of life, socially, economically, politically, culturally, and for many of us spiritually. Many of us are probably questioning our spiritual walk because things are just not looking like the promised land, or the prosperity
Mhm.
preaching, or the blessing season. It's probably looking like, what is going on? And Lord, are you in the midst of
Right.
this? So this is a timely conversation. So if today's conversation spoke to you, I want you to know that you're not behind, you're not disqualified, and you're not forgotten. God's purpose for your life, it still stands, and he's calling you to partner with him in faith and in action. So a huge thank you to Dr. Nick for sharing so much wisdom today, and for reminding us that clarity doesn't come from hustle, but it comes from hearing from God and knowing that who you are and walking it out daily. Dr. Nick, tell us how we can connect with you if we want to continue to follow you and get some more of these wisdom nuggets from you.
Yes, I am on at Dr. Nick on all platforms. Facebook, Instagram, and Dr. Rankin on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And if you also wanted to tap into her coaching, go to www.drnicolerankin.com for more resources and encouragement. And if you're ready to start your adulting in purpose, then now is the time. So if this episode blessed you, remember to like, share, and subscribe. This episode with Dr. Nick is going to be our finale episode for our season 2. As we take a break, because again, we're not doing burnout here at the FaithFlex podcast. And we come back in September for season 3. So thank you, Dr. Nick, for ending us on a good note. But I hope that you join me next week for our re-airings of all of our previous season episodes as we continue to flex our faith. Until next time, thanks, everybody. And that's a wrap on today's soul-stirring episode of the FaithFlex podcast. I hope you're leaving feeling uplifted and equipped to turn your everyday experience into stepping stones for spiritual growth and practical living. Thank you for tuning in and sharing your time with me. Be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a review if you enjoyed the journey today. Your support means the world to me, and it helps bring this message to more listeners who are searching for harmony between their spiritual walk and action. Until next time, remember to flex your faith.